What is up, everybody? Welcome to Heads Up Play 2024 SEC Team Preview. We just went over the Oklahoma Sooners. That was our last team. We've gone over a couple of teams. We are now moving on to the most controversial team, I think, of this year, with possibly the toughest SEC schedule. We, of course, are talking about the 2024 Florida Gators. They have a lot of questions coming into this season. Are they going to have a new head coach at the end of the season? Is he even going to make it to the end of the season? What are they going to do at quarterback? Are they going to stick with Graham Mertz? We have a lot of questions for Florida. So does everyone else. So let's get into 2024 SEC preview of the Florida Gators.
If you ain't a Gator, you Gator bait.
My favorite Gator moment of all time was when Alabama beat them and Mark Ingram was doing the Gator chomp, and then Julio Jones tied his mouth shut. He couldn't open it. I love it.
That was the day Urban Meyer died and Tebow cried.
Yes.
The end of the wannabe dynasty. Then
Aaron
we
Hernandez
became a real dynasty.
And then Aaron Hernandez was somewhere committing crimes.
Yeah, look, the Florida Gators, this is an interesting one. Let me ask you this. Did you like Swamp Kings?
No.
When it came out?
I feel like
Okay, all right.
That was my wife. She did not like Swamp Kings. I didn't like Swamp Kings. I think Swamp Kings was very, how to say this? They made Urban Meyer out to be a hero, in my opinion.
Yeah. Let's be real. Urban Meyer is a POS.
I've read multiple articles. Watch plenty of things. He's a piece of shit, from what I've heard.
He seems.
It was a fluff piece.
Absolutely. His reputation was tarnished after his tenure in Jacksonville as the Jaguars coach, where he was awful. I mean, like one of the worst coaching tenures in the NFL history.
I saw a CBS thing. Of course, they gave him the worst. It was the worst coaching hire of all time. And we can maybe have a list for our episode, like what's some of the worst NFL coaches hires of all time. But he would be number one.
What's worse, Urban Meyer at the Jags, or what's his face who just got fired from the Pistons?
Monte Williams.
Yeah.
Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer didn't even finish the season. I would say Urban Meyer was the worst hire for the Jags than Bobby Petrino at the Falcons.
Yeah, that was bad. But yeah, Urban Meyer, I mean, I guess they thought maybe, look, he is a good coach, I think, but obviously maybe only for college. But that's a conversation for another day. Let's get into the current state of the Florida Gators. And look, guys, we just did Oklahoma, all right? We're kind of down on Oklahoma, and you may be wondering, hey, Sweaty Boy and Cowboy, aren't you guys supposed to be doing this in, like, order of, like, worst to best? How is Oklahoma behind Florida? Hey, that's a really good question. We're a little bit, look, we're not high on Florida, but we're definitely not low. This is a team that could be really good. They could be really bad. They could be middle of the pack. To be honest, I looked the other day, and Vegas has total win numbers, I think, at 6.5 for Florida. Actually, maybe it was 5.5. Either way, I'm buying that, to be honest. I'm buying that.
I'm taking the over. I'd put money on that.
Now, look, do you agree or do you not agree that the Florida Gators might just have the toughest schedule, at least in SEC history?
Easily. Their non-conference is ridiculous. I've never seen nothing like it.
Yeah, they definitely look. I don't want to, throw any bias out there. A lot of people know I live in Gainesville, Florida. I go to a lot of Florida sporting events. Not biased here, but Florida kind of got screwed. They got the short end of the stick. They really did. Let's be honest, especially on the tail end of the season. But we'll get into the schedule here in a little bit.
And I don't understand that because, they knew they're in the SEC. Why would you schedule so many these many non-conference games for one? I don't understand that, but because, they plan these out for years ahead.
Yeah, and some of these non-cons are going to be pretty good, pretty fun to watch. Two of them are non-conference games in the state.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and talk a little bit He could be on the hot seat. He could be like
He's
Eli
already on the hot
Drinkwitz.
seat.
He's already on the hot seat. Absolutely. You're right. He could be maybe like an Eli Drinkwitz of last year. Remember Eli Drinkwitz at Missouri? Man, his seat was hotter, his red hotter than your shirt, and he turned
Yeah.
it around and had one of the best seasons that Missouri had ever had. So maybe Billy Napier does that this year. I would not bank on that whatsoever. I do think Billy Napier is a good coach. And when he got hired, you really liked the hire, didn't you?
I love Billy Napier. I thought Billy Napier was a hell of a coach. Still think he's a hell of a coach. I think it's an awful situation. I'm a big advocate. I think Florida's worst mistake was firing Dan Mullen when they did.
Yep.
I mean, 2 years after taking him to the SEC championship, oh, you're fired. What the hell? I mean, out of nowhere. But I think that was the worst mistake. And then Billy Napier, go from Louisiana Lafayette to Florida is God. You almost jumped too far. You should have went to like a South Carolina, Mississippi State. You jumped too far. Now
almost wonder if it was kind of a low ball hire by Florida. Look, this is a team. They may not have the history quite like, let's say, an Alabama or an Oklahoma or Texas or even an LSU or Tennessee. But Florida is, I mean, they're up there. I mean, people just kind of forget about, just how dominant these Florida teams were in the mid 2000s, late 2000s, and the 90s under Steve Spurrier. I mean, people love Florida, or Florida fans love Florida, that is. And they, at one point, were really, 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 really good. And they can be good. They've got great resources, a lot of money, great NIL, great facilities. Now Ben Hill Griffin Stadium is a POS. I mean, but that's part of the aura of Florida almost, is going to that dump and watching a game. But Billy Napier, he enters year 3 now, and this is probably, agree or disagree, John Rivers, maybe the most important year so far for Billy Napier.
I just don't think he makes it out the year.
I agree.
What did they fall to in the recruiting class? I forgot.
So they ended up falling. Remember, he had something going for him, and it was recruiting. And he had like a top 5 class. Like he may have been like 4 or 5 or something like that.
I mean, I thought it was 1 out at some point.
Maybe. I don't know about that. I do know that it was at least top 5 though, and it fell back to like number 14 or something like that. Now he still ended up signing DJ Lagway, who was the number 1 quarterback in that class, and he's got a number of other guys. He's done actually pretty well in the portal recently. He's gotten some guys who should be pretty good for them. But overall, I agree. I don't think that he's going to do fantastic this year, and it is because of that gauntlet of a schedule. Billy Napier, he is 51-26 over his entire head coaching tenure. That does include his time at Louisiana, where he was great.
Mostly I would say that's what most of his wins. We've seen him coach at Louisiana. He's a hell of. I mean, he had always played. I always felt like when you watch the draft, you always had like a skilled player from Louisiana picked.
Yeah, yeah. What's the boy? Trey Amos. He may have been recruited by Billy Napier, a guy dude who transferred from Louisiana Lafayette to Alabama, played cornerback or safety or whatever it was. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. Billy Napier entering year 3. Year 1, I believe he went 6-6, and then 5-7 this past season. Could not make a bowl game because they lost to Arkansas of all teams at the end of the season.
He started off really good. You got to think remember his first game, he beat Utah.
Yeah, that was okay. Wow, is Florida here? Is Florida back under Billy Napier? They beat a good Utah team, and then this year
they had AR-15. I mean, you got to think in his seasons. This is his records. He had Louisiana first year 7-7, and then after that, 11-3, 10-1, 12-1. Now since he's been at Florida, he ain't even had a winning record. He was 6-7, then 5-7. Lost in the Las Vegas Bowl to Oregon State. Got beat 30 that game.
You broke up a little bit there. Got beat what now? 30 what?
30-3.
30-3.
Wow.
And that was against who now?
Oregon State.
Oregon's. Oh, I remember that game. Yeah, that was sad.
And
That was
you was at
unfortunate.
the game last year that cost them a bowl game, a gimme game with Arkansas, and they blew
Absolutely.
that.
Absolutely.
It's like they blow big games. I'm not big on. I think Billy Napier's a good coach, but Florida's too big of a job, and I just truly think he's gone after this year.
Yeah, I agree. Look, and it may be one of those tough. I'll tell you this: if the season goes the way that many of us think it will go, and that's them struggling down the end of the road because of the gauntlet that they have at the end of the season, that won't be too bad for Florida fans who want him out. Because, hey, if he drops a game to, let's say, Miami or UCF or another one of those first, 5-6 teams, he's probably gone middle of the season.
When
Because
you pull up the schedule, I can tell you when he'll be gone.
we'll go ahead and get into it here in a minute, but let's go ahead and talk about their coordinators. So Rob Sale, he is the offensive coordinator. I do not like this. Look, he was the OC with Billy Napier at Louisiana Lafayette, now just Louisiana. He's come over. The offense has been, kind of lackluster for Florida, which is just like Oklahoma in our last video. In the SEC, Florida's known for having explosive offense. I mean, you think back to the Urban Meyer days, Steve Spurrier, explosive offenses. And which is weird because Billy Napier is actually an offensive guy. He looks like a defensive guy, but he's an offensive guy. And they've had some lackluster offenses. Yeah, lackluster offenses. So I don't like that Sale is still there. A lot of Florida fans, I don't think, are big fans of him. Young guy, defensive coordinator. I do think the defenses have been pretty good under Austin Armstrong. He's there entering now year 2 in 2024. He was defensive coordinator and linebackers coach at Southern Miss prior to Florida, and he also was linebackers coach in 2020 at Louisiana. So seems like Billy Napier likes to carry his staff with him, but that may not be the best thing.
Yeah, I agree.
So let's go ahead and get into the schedule.
Here we go. So I think I have them at 6-6. The game, though, I don't know about Miami. That's the one that's kind of has me to toss up. If it was Miami of last year, maybe, but now they got Cam Ward, Mario Cristobal. This is kind of Mario Cristobal's year too,
Absolutely.
like Billy Napier.
Absolutely. So let's talk about that one real quickly. So I made this graphic. The only reason I believe that they will win that game is because I do like some of the things that Billy Napier has done in the portal. I think he's going to utilize DJ Lagway well. I like Graham Mertz actually as a quarterback, and that game is in the Swamp. If this was two of the same teams from last season, or if this was Florida of last season going up against, like you said, Miami of this season, yeah, I'm taking Miami all the way because I do think that they will. This is a pivotal game for both of those teams. Probably the most important game of the season for both Billy Napier and Mario Cristobal, if we're being honest.
But you're like me. I have them winning the first five games, losing Tennessee, beating Kentucky, and then you have them beating Ole Miss. I don't think I do.
So
I think I have them.
I knew you probably would have them losing to Ole Miss. I probably should have made that green/red, and I'll defend my case once we get there. But go ahead and keep going.
I have them losing every game after that.
Okay, so
with the only game, and let me double check. They would win. Would be LSU because it's at Gainesville.
Yeah, it is.
And they haven't announced the time yet, but they said between 3 and 8 p.m. If they make that a night game, maybe.
Oh my gosh! So
I should
be at that game. I should be at that game, and man, am I excited! That is going to be quite an
if they can make that a nighttime game. Let me see what other game. You got Tennessee, Georgia that week.
Nighttime LSU, Florida in the Swamp. Come on, gotta be nighttime.
Yeah, because the only other SEC game that's worth the damn is Georgia, Tennessee.
Yeah, that'll probably be 2:30, and then this will probably be 7:00, whatever. But all right, so I'm with you. I have them losing to Tennessee, losing to Georgia, losing to Texas on the road.
If they do what we say they're going to do and win the first 5 games and finish it, he will not. He'll make it out to the end of the season. He will not get fired at the beginning. But if he loses to Miami, or if he loses to UCF or A&M, and he loses 2 or 3 games, he'll be fired after Tennessee.
Absolutely, he'll have to be. He'll have to be, because if he's shown that he can't beat, say, a Miami or an A&M or a UCF, what would he have shown to continue to beat any one of these teams at the
We're
back
sleeping
end?
on the real Bulldogs on this list.
Hey, don't sleep on them Homewood boys.
I'm telling you, man. They got cheated by Kansas. They knew that they were going to do good in the tournament. They got cheated by Kansas.
That's right. Don't sleep on them Sanford Bulldogs.
But
I'll tell you what, though. Remember, let me look here. Now, this will not be the first time that Sanford will have went to the Swamp. Let me see here. So Sanford, last time they went to the Swamp actually was just a few years ago, 2021. Final score of that game, 70-52. So an offensive shootout. Now that was Dan Mullen. So a little bit different story here. I don't know.
That was the year he was got to get fired. I think that was the year he got fired.
Yeah. Again, stupid decision by Florida. But all right. So let me defend my Ole Miss case here. Am I confident on that win? No, but I do think if Ole Miss is what we think they're going to be, I think Ole Miss is dropping a game or two. I do think Ole Miss will be really good, but I think that they're dropping a game or two. They don't have to play Alabama this year, I don't think.
They don't.
They don't. So they got to go to the Swamp. That is in Gainesville.
It's one of them things. I agree with you. That could be a game that could drop since they got to go to the Swamp, but it also depends what Florida team are they playing that week.
Exactly. It may very well be, look, this team is just done for, or it could be a team fighting to get a bowl win, knowing, hey, this is our last chance. Granted, they couldn't do it last year against Arkansas of all teams, but who knows? Out of all those SEC teams, it could be Ole Miss or LSU that they pull some sort of magical Swamp upset on. Who really knows?
No, I agree. This is going to be a fun team to watch. I think Graham Mertz, I just don't know, man, about Florida. Florida's so, like they can go 6-6 or 9-3.
Tell me if I'm wrong. Does it just seem a little bit right when Florida is good? Like, does it just not feel like SEC football is true?
It feels weird having, and I'm going to say this as an Alabama fan, it feels weird having Auburn and Florida not like top, because Auburn's an SEC team usually. And I feel like those two teams have been in a rut for the last couple of years.
Yeah, they have been. And both programs are very similar in that they just can't seem to hold on to anybody for too long, right? They're always we could do better. We could, Dan Mullen, he's done pretty good. He got us to a SEC championship game, almost took Alabama to overtime, but he could be even better. Let's go get Billy Napier, because that's an upgrade. Let's go get Hugh Freeze, because that's an upgrade.
That's how I look at Auburn. I mean, you had Gus Malzahn, and I'll say this when we get to the Auburn team episode. Auburn fired Gus Malzahn at the worst time, I think.
Absolutely. There are two programs that are too heavily influenced by the boosters and to be honest, the fans. The fans have a lot of influence. I mean, Auburn, strung together this whole thing to make it look like Brian Harsin cheated on his wife with his assistant or whatever to get him fired, and to have an excuse to fire him.
It's the dumbest thing.
And here Florida is, I can't even remember, why they ended up firing Dan Mullen. I mean, that was just stupid.
They tried to say he didn't recruit.
I mean, he probably would not have been able to recruit that bad, but I mean, if you really dig deep on it, Dan Mullen, I mean, he wasn't recruiting any worse than how Billy Napier is now. I mean, and Billy Napier has way more resources. They've really stepped up the facilities game here at Florida since Billy Napier has gotten here compared to when Dan Mullen was there. And Dan Mullen will tell you that. He'll tell you that for sure.
Dan Mullen, I think they wanted to get rid. He was just acting like an ass on the sidelines with the Darth Vader. I think he kind of shot himself out of that role.
He probably did. I would love to see Dan Mullen come back to coaching one day. Maybe
He
if
could be
Mississippi State wants him back
a
in.
offensive coordinator.
Yeah, good analyst type
Yeah, he
role.
was when he was at Florida. He was
Yeah,
offensive coordinator.
yeah. So, guys, I think that does it for our Florida Gators SEC preview. We have done, how many have we done of these now? Are we halfway through?
I think we're halfway through.
Gosh, that's crazy. I
Like,
mean,
we're at 66 days till college football.
I'm going to be honest, man. This has been the fastest college football offseason in quite a long time. I know it's because it's just because there's so much change happening everywhere. Yeah. I mean, Kalen DeBoer, you got the new SEC, the new playoff system, NIL, all the recruiting. Like, I mean, when they say there is no offseason, there really is no offseason. I mean, it's been incredible. But, guys, be sure to like, subscribe, follow us on everything, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. Leave a comment. How do you think the Gators are going to do this year? And let us know. Yeah. And as always, hit them with it.
You stay classy.